Hi everyone, welcome to our presentation this morning. My name is Lesley-Caren Johnson and I'm the author of the book, The Nedbank Ultimate Business Companion. Based on the work that I do in the franchising sector, which is writing operations and procedures manuals for franchise companies, I can't stress strongly enough the importance of building systems, procedures, processes, etc. for your business. In other words, systematizing your business. I've always felt that one of the key objectives of my book is to provide business owners with the knowledge, the tools, the resources to be able to let them do just this, systematize their business. So this presentation is going to focus on why it's a good idea to systematize your business and also give you some indication and some tips and hints as to how you can go about doing that. So before we jump into the presentation, you can send me your questions and comments throughout the presentation. I'd love to hear from you along the way. And to get you started, I thought you could send me a message telling me why you decided to get into business for yourself. What prompted that? What encouraged you to do it? And then to add some excitement to our presentation this morning, we're giving away 5 copies of the Nedbank Ultimate Business Companion to 5 lucky webinar participants. So get typing, send us your comments and questions. Hopefully you'll be one of those lucky winners. So if we sort of jump into the presentation and get into sort of the why you should be systematizing your business. So let's start with the whole thing about why you went into business for yourself. I see no one's giving me their ideas as to why they've done it. So let's have a discussion around a couple of these points. A lot of small business owners go into business because they just want to do their own thing. They've decided that they've worked for a boss, they did work for a boss, and obviously can do the work, can do the physical part of the job, but the actual reward, if you like, goes to their boss as opposed to going to themselves. So for a lot of business owners, it's very much a case of, I would like to be in business for myself, do things for myself, and obviously get the reward for myself. So the second point is, as I said, we all think we have these skills and abilities, and our idea is to take those skills and abilities and make more money for ourselves and enjoy the benefits of that hard work. Sorry, just having a technical thing here, just trying to make sure we've got microphones and everything right. There we go. I've got some comment to it because it's a family business. Yes, we come across that very often. A lot of people go into business for themselves because he's had a business for many years or many generations, and it's almost a natural thing for people to do, for the kids to do, is to go into their parents' businesses. So we're just catching up. We've got some issues here. Somebody says sound's not coming through, so we're just trying to sort that out. You sorted, Raksha? Good, great. Okay, so moving along, what often happens in businesses where people go into business for themselves is we land up in a situation where, you think about working for someone. You go to work every day. You kind of really don't have that much stress. You earn a salary at the end of the month. When we go away from being in an employee-employer situation and we now suddenly become the boss or the business owner, effectively, we find ourselves working harder. I'm sure a lot of you can attest to the fact that you work harder when you work for yourself. You spend more time and more hours. And in fact, is that one of the reasons and one of the objectives that you went into business for yourself? For most business owners, we kind of think that we'll go into business for ourselves, we'll earn more money, and we'll have more time, we'll have a better quality of life, we won't be reporting to a boss. But this is actually not often the case. And we find that if you have to ask your employees how they feel about situations, they kind of benefit from all these 5 reasons that we spoke about, whereas you're the one who's working hard. And the only way to continue to make sure that your business is okay and that you're building this strong, hopefully sustainable business is to ensure that you're there all the time. Now, ideally, if you start looking at your business more from a sort of bird's eye view, a helicopter view, you'll be in the situation where you can start identifying what needs to be put in place by way of systems and procedures so that your business can actually start operating without ideal. That if you had to walk away from your business and you had to go on holiday for 3 weeks, the people that work for you should actually be able to do everything that you expect them to do. And in that way, you start separating yourself from the business, okay? That you're looking at it more strategically compared to what you were doing before in terms of physically being in the business and actually operating the business. So if you think about it as a business owner, there are no rewards for activity in free enterprise business. You only get rewards for results. So people, your clients, your customers only pay you when they see results, okay, when they physically bought something or you've provided something, a product or a service to them. So if you're wanting to create more freedom, create a better, well-run business, then systems and procedures are the way to go, so that you can start extracting yourselves for the business, and you start leveraging off other people, i.e. your staff, okay, making them do the work, making sure that you're looking at the business more strategically, and that you are you're more governing and managing the business as opposed to doing these things in the business. So I'm just going to swap here. There we go. Okay, so let's go into a bit of a case study for you. So if you've seen the movie, or you know the history of McDonald's, the movie was called The Founder. You will know the history of McDonald's. The business was started by Richard and Maurice, or Dick and Mick McDonald as they were called, and it was started in 1940. And effectively, after running the business for about 8 years, they started experimenting with the way that they were doing things and looking at how they could become better at certain aspects of the business, how they could become more efficient. And they came up with what they called the speedy line assembly service. So what does this mean? So they looked at every aspect of how the business was being run, from the time the customer came up to the window to place their order, to how the cashier processed the transaction and attended to the customer, to how they produced the actual product, the burgers and the chips and the milkshakes, etc. And they tried to come up with a way of how they could do that more efficiently and more effectively, how they could increase the productivity. And importantly as well, they also looked at their busy and quiet times in the business, so their peaks and valleys. Remember that if you're going to meet customer demand, so if you're going to be very busy at certain times of the day, in a fast food restaurant like this, you might be very busy at sort of breakfast time in the morning. You're going to be incredibly busy over traditional lunchtime periods. And then early evening, when everyone's going home or getting their dinner organized, you're going to be busy then. And you need to prepare for those busy times and prepare for the demand at those times. So when they kind of looked at their business like this and decided that they needed to find ways to be more productive and more efficient, they went into every aspect of the business and they got it right, okay? And when they got the speedy line assembly sorted, they actually decided to franchise, and they franchised in 1953. In 1962, milkshake salesman Ray Kroc came along, and they actually sold the rights, the franchising rights, to Ray Kroc in 1962. Or not, the McDonald's brothers actually went out of business in 1964. Now, what happened when Ray Kroc came on the scene? So, as I said to you, he was this milkshake machine salesman, and he came along and was selling milkshake machines to the brothers for quite some time. And at one point, they said to him they wanted to order 8 milkshake mixes. And he was intrigued by this and decided to go to the brothers and say, can you have a look at their business and see why they needed 8 milkshake machines? And when he actually saw why such a small shop needed so much equipment, realized it was because they sold so many milkshakes, but it was because they had this system in place that allowed for them to push out the quantities they were doing. They were preparing in advance, they were making sure that their sort of daily or shift prep was done in time, and it made the business so much more efficient. And if you think about the growth and the expansion of McDonald's around the world, I mean, he paid $2.7 million for the rights to franchise. And in 2005, McDonald's were opening a store every hour somewhere in the world. I mean, that's incredible. So think about Ray versus the McDonald's brothers. What did he know that they didn't? Think about that, hey? And what do all empire builders know that others don't? And that's a very important question if you think about how businesses are managed and run. If you've read the book by Robert Kiyosaki, either The Cash Flow Quadrant or Rich Man, Poor Man, you will have explained to you the difference between being self-employed and being a business owner. Now, if you think about being self-employed, so which a lot of us are, effectively, the business relies on you. You have a business that if you're not there, if you're not involved in it every day, the business kind of doesn't happen, it doesn't run. And typically, when we're in this sort of self-employed mode, we don't like to rely on other people. We very much are, we don't like to delegate. We like to make sure that we do everything. If we want to get it done right, it's a situation saying, I must do it myself. That's typically our motto. And we kind of work ourselves to death and don't really make any real money out of the whole initiative and the whole business venture. If, however, we decide that we want to look at the business differently and actually become a business owner as opposed to a self-employed person. Now suddenly you're looking at having a business that's independent of you. And you start getting yourself into a situation, if you remember back to one of the first slides, where I said that being in business for yourself, you went into that business because you wanted more autonomy, you wanted more control, and you wanted to be able to make more money. In the case of a business owner, we start surrounding ourselves with other people. We start surrounding ourselves with the employees, people that have to do the job. We start surrounding ourselves by hopefully investors. I spoke to you about leveraging. So not only are we going to leverage off our staff, but obviously there's an opportunity to look at financing opportunities and leveraging of other people's money. I hope you're all still sitting there. I'm not seeing any questions come through while we're chatting about this. If you've got any questions, shout, and we'll try and answer them as well as we go through the process. Okay, so in order to shift from having this sort of self-employed business where I feel I'm a business owner, but I tend to work so much in my business and be involved constantly in the running of the business and what I'm doing, I need to shift that now and become more of a business owner. Have a system in place where the business now no longer actually relies on me as the owner. I want to be able to pass all of that on to other people so that they get to do and I get to reap the benefits and the rewards. So what is the definition or the purpose, if you like, of a business? So, and again, going back to the answers that you did send me earlier, obviously we're in a situation where, yes, we want to earn more money, we want more freedom, we want to be autonomous in our businesses, but the ideal is that we need to be in a situation where it gives you as the owner more life, more quality of life. And you need to ask yourself, the business, is it giving me more time? Is it giving me more money? Is being in business for myself giving me more freedom and more enjoyment? If your answer is not a resounding yes, then you have a job. Or as the author and action coach Brad Sugars puts it, you have a hobby. Okay, so I often tell myself I have a hobby, but you need to look at this critically and identify what your goals and objectives as a business owner are and decide from there how you want to play it. Okay, quite important. So the definition of a business, as we've just discussed then, is it should be a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without the owner, works without you. Okay, so Michael Gerber is the author of a book called The E-Myth, or The Entrepreneurial Myth. And he coined the phrase working in versus on your business. So it's quite a common sort of overused phrase. I'm sure you've heard that quite a lot. Now, it's important that you look at yourself very critically and say, do I work on or in my business? And as a self-employed person versus a business owner, if I'm going to shift towards being a business owner, then I certainly need to start looking at my business and saying, how do I pass on some of the day-to-day work? And how do I get to the point where I'm actually working on my business? And when we say working on my business, any idea what we mean by that? What do you think that kind of says to you as a business owner? Effectively, it's saying you need to look at your business strategically. You need to look at the business and say, am I doing the day-to-day stuff where I'm getting bogged down in the nitty-gritty? Am I putting out fires? Am I solving customer problems? Are my staff kind of always running at me with questions and I've got to control things all the time? Or can I now take a step back and actually look at my business more strategically and start planning for the future, planning for where I see my business growing, where I see my business evolving, etc. And this whole process of looking at it and identifying what your objective is and your goals are in terms of whether you want to be a self-employed person or whether you want to be a business owner, you need to make that decision. Am I now going to start working on my business? Okay. And in the book, The E-Myth, Michael Gerber talks about three different business owners that we fall into one of three different categories. So the first one being the entrepreneur, the second one, the manager, and the third one, the technician. So think about yourselves now. Which category do you think you fall into? Okay, send me a message if you wish. And we'll take a little bit of a deeper dive into the three categories so you can sort of assess where you think you fit as well. But just off, as you read this slide, tell me what you think. Where do you fall? Which category do you fall into? So let's start talking about the entrepreneur. Are you a true entrepreneur? Okay, are you a visionary or a dreamer? Are you living in the future? Are you thinking ahead and planning strategically for the future? Are you looking at the country, the political situation, the economics of the country at the moment? Depending on the kind of business you're in, what can impact your business? What can put pressure on your business? What is your kind of SWOT analysis, your strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats? Have you assessed all that? Have you looked to the future and decided what you need to do to resolve any issues you're having and how you're going to go about preventing those sort of things in the future. And very much from an entrepreneurial point of view, if I think about the type of person that is, they're very much the dreamer. Okay, think Richard Branson, think Elon Musk, think of all these guys who've come up with these phenomenal ideas. They want to go out there, they want to really implement and come up with these marvelous ideas and inventions and stuff. I mean, the world would just not be the same place without them. Okay, is that you? Are you an entrepreneur? And if you're a true entrepreneur, your business is a system. Your business is not reliant on you. And effectively, as an entrepreneur, because you're working on your business as opposed to in it, you see opportunity. And that opportunity is, from an entrepreneurial point of view, you look at those opportunities and you think, how can I translate that into it being a benefit for yourself and your business, and the time you have, etc. Okay, so anybody got any thoughts on being an entrepreneur, or are you a manager? Are you more of a manager in your business? So if you think about the manager compared to the entrepreneur, where the entrepreneur very much lives in the future and is a bit of a sort of havoc creator, the manager very much lives in the past. The manager craves order. He needs to know that systems, procedures are in place, that he can follow those. He needs to know that exactly what he's accountable for. He needs to know exactly what his decision-making capabilities are for. He needs to have those work processes in place that make it comfortable for him to actually do the job, because that's what allows him to get the job done. And as a manager, kind of that's what he gets paid for. Now, if you're a manager in the business, that's all you're doing. You're operating in the business, and there's no real planning for the future. There's no real sort of getting excited about opportunities, looking for opportunities that could actually help you improve your business and grow your business going into the future. Now, the next category, as you saw on the list, is the technician. Unfortunately, this is where most small business owners sit, okay? And I kind of speak for myself here when I say this too. We're still doing the technical work. In other words, we're still working in the business. So very much a case of I was employed by a business or by a boss, and every day I did this job in and out, and I kind of understood it very well, and I eventually made a decision that I could do this for myself and actually earn a good living if I was doing this for myself, and I was going to reap all the rewards. When I left employment and I went off to do my own thing, I went off to kind of have my own business and become a business owner, I didn't move from being an employee. I actually stayed there. I stayed stuck in that day-to-day operational stuff, and I got on with doing the job. And effectively, when it comes to that kind of approach, if you're the technician in the business, pretty much from a timeline point of view, we've all only got one pair of hands rather. We can only tackle one issue at a time. So we very much see a future based on the present. If I'm working myself to death and I'm really, really kind of challenged, and I haven't employed staff or I haven't delegated work to my staff, then I'm kind of doing the job. It starts and ends with me. And as a result of that, I'm not going to shift my business. I'm forever going to be the technician. I'm forever going to be the person doing the job. So it's incredibly important that you identify, and I keep saying this, you've got to make a critical decision about yourself and your business. Where do you sit? Are you a technician? Are you a manager? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you self-employed? Are you a business owner? Where do you sit? And where do you want to move from? Are you happy to stay as the technician and actually doing the work for all time? Think about it just practically. If you're actually physically doing the work, and in December you decide that you're going to shut your business for 3 weeks and go on holiday, you've gone. That business doesn't earn money over those 3 weeks. The opportunity is gone. Your customers aren't going to come and place orders or request anything from you because they know you're on holiday and pick it up in January. There are lots of lost opportunities when those kind of things happen. Whereas if I have a business where I'm employing staff and empowering staff to do certain things and to take care of the day-to-day aspects of the business, then different position. My business starts operating without me. Okay, no questions from anybody. It's very quiet out there. You all still with me? Oh, there we go. Got some. Okay. Okay, I like your comment, Given. Yeah, believing in a balance between entrepreneurs and managers is important. Absolutely. So we'll just kind of add to that a little bit, is that as a small business owner, as much as I say, pull yourself out of it and get to the point where you're more of a business owner than self-employed, or where you're not focusing on being the technician every day, I still say don't separate yourself from being the technician. You still need to know what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, but you're now providing guidance and training, and you're overseeing stuff happening in the business as opposed to just kind of doing it all yourself. Okay, so that's very important. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of small business owners struggle to actually hand off the work. I told you earlier that a lot of us our motto is, if you want it done properly, do it yourself. But we've got to try and get out of that mindset. Okay, so let's get into a little bit around systematizing and why you should systematize the business. So answer this question, or think about this one. Did Ray Kroc buy the rights to McDonald's because he liked the burgers or the milkshakes? Okay, the answer should be no. If you were considering buying a business, would you buy a small independent business or would you buy a McDonald's, given the opportunity? Most of us would buy a McDonald's, okay? And the reason most of us would look at buying a McDonald's is because McDonald's has a way of doing things. So I'm going to put that in inverted commas. They have a way of doing things. And it's their way of doing things, their systems, that make them so attractive to investors and business owners. They've got tried and tested systems. They haven't implemented systems and just kind of gone, okay, we've done it now and, all's good and healthy and well. They've actually tested them, and on an ongoing basis, they review those systems and they review what they've implemented and where they can improve. It's constant improvement. So it's always a good idea to implement, but then monitor and improve as you can. Okay, and it's also an important aspect of the business owner to kind of get important aspects of managing and leading the business, as well as trying to achieve the same level of performance and consistency, no matter who carries out the activity. So one of the core reasons for why you should systematize your business, besides the fact that it will give you the opportunity to kind of pull yourself away from the day-to-day operation of the business, is that continuity of service, that sort of uniformity. It's one of the things that frustrates me so much going into different businesses, and they could be exactly the same businesses, within a brand, within a common brand, and how you just get different level of service depending on the people who work in that business, that store, or that restaurant, or that takeaway outlet, or that hair salon, or wherever it is you go. And it's just because there's no standardized systems and procedures that have been put in place, but consistently implemented across the business as well. And a key aspect of systematizing, a benefit of systematizing your business, is that it's very cost effective. It allows you to employ people, to train them, to give them the resources that they need in order to do their job. And you can pretty much leave them to get on with it and just come and check on them occasionally, because you've actually given them the information that they need to actually carry it forward and to do it. So, typically speaking, businesses don't come with a user manual. It's you kind of start a business and you get going, and one day leads into the next, and you just react. And as I said earlier, often what happens is in that small business type space, we are very reactionary. It's very much a case of, I do today what I need to do today. I put out fires if I need to put out fires, and we need to get to the point where we can get so beyond that, where we can keep the wheels of the business turning profitably, and kind of make more money effectively, and then enjoy more freedom and have more enjoyment out of our business. Now, I'll give you an example of a business that implemented a customer service philosophy that they really gave this a lot of thought, and then they rolled it out throughout the business operations. So if you think of the example of FedEx had a philosophy, they implemented a philosophy called the Purple Promise. And basically what they did was they got every single one of their FedEx employees across the world, across the globe, to commit to providing exceptional customer service and a great customer experience to all their customers. So here's an example of how this kind of was put into action by one of the FedEx employees. They had a tracing clerk, her name was Diane, and she was sitting at one of the depots, and she got a call from this absolutely distraught customer saying that FedEx was supposed to have delivered her wedding dress to the small little town in Indiana in the States by 12 noon that day. It was 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon, and of course, no wedding dress. So it was also a coincidence that the customer was calling from the same town that had a distribution plant, but the plant didn't make use of FedEx services. Anyway, this woman was obviously crying, and she's in a bit of a state. and she didn't know where FedEx was or what was happening with her wedding dress, but obviously getting married the next day and, being in this small town, she's not going to be able to rush off and just get a replacement wedding dress in a hurry. And this was kind of the social event of the season. So Diane, kind of using her commitment to customer experience and to the Purple Promise, proceeded to trace the package and eventually found it in Detroit, which is about 300 miles from this town in Indiana where it was supposed to be. So FedEx's vision was get the packages. And Diane interpreted this to mean that she had to do whatever she could possibly do to get this wedding dress to the customer. Diane chartered an aeroplane, a little Cessna, and a pilot. The pilot flew to Detroit, picked up the package, and had it delivered to the customer in the small town in Indiana. So on Monday morning, after the wedding, Diane received a call from the customer to thank her for putting through, for getting her wedding dress delivered to her for the big day. And then she asked to be put through to Diane's senior manager. So Diane put her through to Michael Bash, her boss, and she rather tearfully relayed her story. It pointed out that there was still one little problem. So Michael Bash asked, well, what was that? And she said, well, as much as it was a great wedding and everything else, she felt that she hadn't been the center of attention at her own wedding because all the guests could talk about was this new airline that was suddenly delivering packages. But Michael still wasn't impressed. So although we have a happy customer, he kind of looked at it and went, well, what did it cost to get us the package to the customer? So he spoke to Diane, went and confronted her and asked her, how does she make a decision to hire a plane and a pilot? And Diane simply responded by saying that she had to follow the vision of getting the package to the customer. And she also said that because of what she'd done, people had started talking about FedEx and noticing FedEx. And it was Diane who was least surprised when 2 weeks later, the distribution center, the depot in that small town that kind of wasn't using FedEx, suddenly started giving FedEx 20 packages a day. Okay. And FedEx's philosophy in terms of the whole Purple Promise and in general in terms of their business and how it operates is when you look at your business, systematize the routine. Find those routine things that happen in your business on a daily basis. Okay, things that we almost kind of do with our eyes closed or with blinkers on, but humanize the exception. So where there are issues that could extend beyond just the day-to-day stuff, or where suddenly there's a fire that we need to put out, or where there's an issue and a major customer complaint, or a customer is dissatisfied with what we've given them or the service we've provided. Put systems in place where the customer then has an alternative. In this day and age, we are so used to talking to automated voice messaging systems and to having to log complaints online and that kind of thing. At the end of the day, it's a case of I've got to be able to speak to someone. So if things are really bad and I haven't had any luck with something that's routine, I need to be able to escalate it. So give your customers an opportunity that they can escalate it and have a voice behind the process that the customer can actually speak to. So I just have a question here from Monique. We're a small business with only 5 members. What is the first thing that I should systematize? Thanks, Monique. So I'm going to get into that in just a moment. I'm going to talk about how you go about identifying the areas of your business where it's almost critical that you should systematize them. I'm going to talk about that in shortly, in just a moment. So in the meantime, if I can just touch on my next slide for you is, what we often advise, and obviously because I kind of play a lot in the franchising space, is whether you're thinking of franchising your business or not, the advice is systematize your business as though you were going to franchise, as though that was your plan. Okay. So if you think of a franchise model approach, from a franchising point of view, and if any of you have owned a franchise or been involved in a franchise, you'll know, for the majority, a good franchise will have standardized systems, procedures, processes in place, and they are documented. So my business is called Word Sparks, and my little tagline or payoff line says from inspiration to information. And so often what happens in small businesses is the intellectual property, the know-how of what needs to happen in the business all resides in the owner's head. And typically when we need to give out instructions as a business owner or a self-employed person, I give instructions to my employees. And, I might tell one employee to do something one way, and the next time I do it, I might tell them the same thing, but in a different way, and it gets interpreted differently. The other thing that often happens is that I might give an instruction to a more senior person, say a manager that I might have in my business. He then or she has to give that instruction to someone else, and we suddenly have a broken telephone scenario where the person who finally receives the end message, that message is nowhere near what you as the business owner or the self-employed person actually put out there. So it's important to actually document things and, put things down in writing. The minute they're on paper and you have an opportunity to look at them and review them, you will start seeing where the gaps in your processes and procedures are. You'll start identifying where there's room for improvement and where you can, typically like the McDonald's scenario, where you can kind of strive towards that constant improvement in your business. In the franchising world, that strict adherence to the business policies and procedures is enforced not only by the franchisee, but by the franchisor as well. So even from a head office or senior point of view, we are constantly making sure that the minimum standards, the operating requirements are carried down throughout the network, that they don't just stop at the business owner or the entrepreneur who came up with this wonderful business and now this information all sits and gets stuck with him. And pretty much every good, reputable franchise business will have a well-documented operations and procedures manual. And it makes for consistent, predictable, and uniform service. Okay, nothing is left to chance. There's no erratic customer service. People aren't, your staff aren't making things up as they go along. It actually becomes far more predictable. As a customer, I like that. I like to know what I'm going to get when I go into a business. And I think if you think about it, a lot of you will feel that's exactly the same thing. Okay, that you like that too. You like that predictability when you go and spend your money in anybody else's business. And the benefit of documenting and systematizing your business is that you land up in a situation where you can have relatively low level of skill as far as your employees are concerned. Because they've got the resources that they need to actually do the job you've employed them to do. And they've got a resource that they can go back and reference if they're unsure of how to do something. And just going back to another comment on the stream here, Given says that customer service is at the heart of every business, but how can one systematize and automate without losing the human touch? So my previous comment around systematizing the routine and humanizing the exception, don't think that just because we document something or we come up with a system, that's the be all and end all. You need your systems need to be flexible. You need to be able to adapt, and your staff need to know that. They need to know that they've got a certain role to play, that this is their accountability and the scope of what you expect of them, and it's all documented. But should something go wrong outside of what you've given them, that there's always some way to take it further. There's always someone to deal with it, and there's that human voice behind the processes. So very important from a business point of view. And when it comes to selling your business, if that's an objective of yours in the future, if you decide that you're setting up this business, you want to make it viable and profitable and eventually have an asset to sell, because you can prove then that your business is not reliant on you as an individual, it actually gives your business that much more value. Because someone else coming into that business, if they've got an idea to buy it from you, they can actually take your operations and procedures manual. They can know that if they just carry on implementing the systems, the processes that you've developed, that business can then still run seamlessly. And you almost won't even see that there's a changeover of ownership in the business, because from a customer point of view, it's just business as usual. So ideally, that's where you want to get to. Okay, so the idea behind systematizing the business and how you start that, I think this is kind of key for everybody. If you're going to start looking at how to systematize your business, my first thing, and I do this when I write operations and procedures manual, this is my approach. So I do this in the real world, so it's doable, and I've been doing it for kind of the last 20 years, all right? And this is typically how I would do things and how I start such a project. So my first thing to do is when I look at a business is I departmentalize it. I divide it into main functional areas or departments so that you can very clearly see what is, which people or which sections of the business are responsible for carrying out which duties, which functions, etc. That's usually a good start, okay? And once I've actually departmentalized or divided the business into functional areas, I then, within those departments, I actually list the main functions. So, for example, let's take an accounts department, okay? So from an accounts point of view, if I'm running debtors, if I have a debtors book in my business, I might have a debtors clerk. So one of the functions is debtors. If I'm selling products and which I have to purchase from my suppliers, I've also got creditors that I'm managing. I might need to have a creditors clerk. I might just have general admin people that do all of this work, but list the responsibilities that your admin department then has to do every single day. Okay. The next point is, and this goes back to Monique's question, is how do I prioritize? How do I decide what's important? Now, as a business owner, go back and look at things like, where have you had to get involved with dealing with issues and sorting out problems? Where have you had to get involved with customer complaints? And typically, what topics do those customer complaints revolve around? And that'll already give you a very good indication as to where you need to start putting these systems and clear procedures in place for how you want your staff to manage them. Then once you've prioritized it and you've decided sort of how you're going to approach it, and if you've got different employees working in the business and working in these different departments, you can actually run these sections or start systematizing and documenting information concurrently across the functional areas. You don't have to kind of wait and do one after another and adopt this more linear approach, okay? So start with getting your employees within each of these departments or areas to actually list the tasks they perform. Start there. The tasks they perform every day, list it, and then they document what they actually do, their actual procedures. So I'm busy doing this with a client at the moment where we're trying to get the staff in the store to actually write their own standard operating procedures, okay? And it's such an interesting exercise because as the store owner or the branch manager, when he looks at what his staff are doing, he kind of almost simplified what their job functions were. As the staff started documenting, Russell, I'm answering your question as I speak, I think. Can I ask my staff to put together their own systems or documents, or should I do it myself? So the first point is that you get your staff to do it. Get them to actually list and document every single task, function, procedure that they do. And on a procedure point of view, step by step. So if it's a debtors clerk, and let's say the one task is that they've got to follow up on outstanding debtors every month, then it's step by step in terms of when they have to do it, by what day of the month, where do they record the interaction with the customer when they make their telephone call or send that email, what are the standards required in terms of if the customer's in 30 days or 60 days or overdue on their payment. So get them to start putting down their procedures. And once they've done that, then you or you could even pass it to a manager, or you as the business owner could then take a look at that and actually identify if it's correct, if it's the absolute ultimate way that you want them to do the business, because this gives you an opportunity to also start improving on how things are done in your business. It's a great opportunity to really look with a critical eye at how the business is operating, what your employees are doing, and also to ensure that they're on the same page as you in terms of the expectations. And eventually, by going through this process, you'll actually get to the point where you now have your way of doing things here, just like McDonald's does, okay? And importantly, something to remember is when you write down and you document all these procedures, all these processes, and getting to the point of systematizing the different aspects of the business, also put in measurement criteria. Our measurement criteria is, for example, if a job has to be done by a certain date, then you can go as the business owner or as that person's boss, they can go and check that the job was done by a certain date. If, as a salesperson, for example, if we expect our salespeople to make 40 phone calls a month to walk-in customers or customers who we've got listed in our database, then we need to have a way of assessing, did they actually make those phone calls? So then we start setting up either on a customer relationship management system, a CRM system, or we start setting up an Excel spreadsheet. It can be something as simple as that, where your sales staff actually log every month who they've spoken to, who they've contacted, and what the result of that phone call or that interaction was. As a manager or as a business owner, I can actually go back and check, have they done what they were supposed to do? So I think it's very important to look at the measurement criteria, because you've all heard there's a marketing saying test and measure when you're implementing different marketing techniques. The same applies to your business policies, procedures, and systems. Always test. So once I've got everything documented, once I've decided how I'm going to format and present my business policies, processes, procedures, I need to now finalize that and then train my employees. So use that information now so that employees now understand that they've got to do the job exactly as we've documented, exactly as the system now prescribes. So the beauty of that system is that should an employee not be able to come to work, let's say an employee goes off sick, or an employee resigns and just doesn't come back, doesn't give you a notice period and just doesn't come back, absconds from work, and you have to employ someone else, you now have the resources that you can give them and say, read through this. Once you've read through it, I'll go through it with you, and literally you should be able to hit the ground running, Mr. Employee, because you've got a thorough resource that you can refer to actually do the job that you've been employed to do. And that makes implementation of your procedures, your policies so much easier. It provides very clear guidelines to your staff as to what they're accountable for, okay, where the buck stops with them. And very importantly, as you go forward and as you implement and do all these things, test and measure all the time. Is it working? Is it still effective in the business? Is it still addressing the need, okay, that we've implemented it to achieve? And I kind of say there, the bottom point there says sign off, and you're signing off on it, but like a business plan, we're not signing off on a business plan at the end or at the beginning of the financial year and never visiting it again. We're always going to go back to our systems, our policies and procedures, and have a look at them and say, are they meeting the needs of the business? That is so important, because if they're not, they become defunct. And it's like putting the operations manual, if you've documented it, it's like putting it on the shelf, and it just is going to gather dust, and it's not going to actually add any value to anybody. So I hope that kind of answers the questions that came through in terms of where do you start. And here I'll just give you an example of how we would start this process in a business like a hair salon, for example. So if I had to divide my business into sort of functional areas or departments, I could look at my hair salon and say, well, I've got a customer component to it, a customer service component to it. I've got the business administration aspect of the business. There's housekeeping, there's stock management, there's marketing. So you'll see there, I haven't included operations in terms of how the actual stylists do their job. That would be another section on its own. But just if we look at the business in general. So my customer service functions, if that was my first department or functional area, a number of issues or a number of key tasks would need to be addressed and documented in terms of policies and procedures. For example, the telephone. How do you expect your staff to answer the telephone? How do you expect them to take messages if you're not available? If a client is phoning in and wants to make an appointment to have their hair done, how do we book and confirm customer appointments? There should be a very clear process. You're really going to get your diary confused and your client confused if you don't get that right. When customers enter the salon, how do we greet them? How do we welcome them into the business? And what is the process and the requirements of that greeter? Some businesses, like Vodacom, for example, in some of their bigger stores, they literally have what's called a greeter. And as the customer walks through the front door, the greeter kind of asks, well, can I help you? What is it you need today? And they help the customer. And I know you've got to punch in your information into a keypad and you get a number, but that number also then says, well, are you there for technical support? Are you there to upgrade your contract? And it kind of steers you to the right person that can deal with your request as a customer. So even though your greeter might be a receptionist that is responsible for a whole host of other things like answering the phone, like taking client bookings, etc., they very clearly will have a greeter function as well, and we must document how they go about that, how they greet and welcome our clients. Then the employee's role in customer service, and this extends across all employees. Every single employee that works in the salon has a role to play in customer service, whether they are the receptionist, the stylist, the person who's washing the customer's hair. And each one of these must understand that it's not, their role isn't kind of dealt with in silos. What the receptionist does might impact on how the stylist needs to treat the customer, the client. What the washer does might also impact what the stylist does. There's a whole way of kind of making sure that our processes are seamless. So, I like the whole thing about using a process flowchart where you almost divide people's functions into swimming lanes, because then you can clearly see where the information overlaps and where one hands off to the other. Because from a customer's point of view, I really want to ensure that the customer sees it as a seamless process. Customer communication is another important aspect of customer service. In terms of, for example, if I'm sending out regular communication, if I'm doing stuff on social media, getting customers permission to communicate with them, little things like that, that can make the interaction and the communication between you and your customer either very rich and the customer enjoys getting your communication, or it gets to the point where it's just too much and you can't handle it, or the customer can't handle it. So think about all these things, and you know, again, I always say keep your customer in mind and implement systems that are still customer friendly. Okay, and also from a customer service point of view, a key aspect of running a hair salon, for example, is, you know, not just letting a customer come in and have their hair done, but making sure that they actually leave your salon having purchased salon products, because a lot of times our margin comes from those kind of things, from the actual sale of salon products. So when it comes to now drafting my actual policy and procedure around the customer service function, always keep the following questions in mind as you're drafting stuff. What must be done? Okay, so very clearly, step by step, bullet point it, number it, whatever is more comfortable for you and whatever you think is clearer, but step by step, what must be done? By when? Okay, from a measurement point of view, very important. Make sure that it's measurable, and if there are sort of certain things that your employee has to do by way of maybe submitting a report or completing a questionnaire or whatever it may be, by when? Who must do it? Who is responsible to carry out those specific functions? Where must it be done, if that's relevant to the business? And sort of the what must be done and how it must be done or carried out kind of probably go hand in hand, but try and find a way to present the information that makes it very easy for your employees to follow. Okay, so step by step, what must be done. Sometimes that is so much clearer if it's presented in the form of like an infographic or a little video clip or something like that. So think about how we actually communicate this information, the media and the format we use to communicate the information with the people that need to actually implement it and do it. And then in some instances, why it must be done. Sometimes if we explain the reasons behind why we do certain things, it makes so much more sense to our staff, because they can understand the sort of reasons behind what we're telling them to do. You know, sometimes we implement systems and procedures in a business, and the staff kind of just feel that we're making more work for them. But if they understand why and what we're trying to achieve by doing it, you get more of a buy-in and more commitment. So there's a question here from Raksha. Are you able to recommend an integrated system? Wow. Raksha, that's something I'd have to look into. You know, I do work with a company. I have an online franchise management portal that, besides housing operations and procedures manuals, also provides other business management functionality to franchisors and sort of a communication platform. And I know that word CRM or the acronym CRM, it's a very big word. It means different things to different people. But there are a lot of systems out there. I think you need to find the system that works best for your business. So look at what you need in the business from an accounting point of view and a finance point of view. There's a lot of packages out there. There's a lot of well-known packages and software out there. And you know, if you go onto certain websites and just go onto different blogs and Google what people think about them, you'll get some input on that. I don't know that you'll find one system that's kind of a one-size-fits-all, unless you get someone to actually write a program or write software for you, which is what we do with my online platform. You know, but then again, you've got to be very clear as to what you want it to do, what you're expecting of it, and that your brief to someone who develops the software for you is very clear. Otherwise, you could very well land up with a system that kind of does some of what you needed to do, but possibly not everything. So I would do some homework on that. I would sort of definitely do some research, look around and see what's available, but identify beforehand what in your business, what specifically you want your systems to do. And you know, I'm hesitant to say you will or you won't find something that combines them all. You may very well, but I think, you know, if you're talking accounting and finance, those software packages are very focused at accounting and finance and the compliance in that regard. If you're talking about sales or CRM, you know, the likes of Salesforce, there's all those kind of packages out there. There's specific bespoke project management packages. So I would really identify and maybe list what it is you're looking for, and then go and do some research around who's got what, and do the offerings actually meet your needs and your requirements. I would start there. I think I've been a bit vague, I'm sorry, but I don't, you know, I haven't got a definitive answer for you on that one. Okay, cool. So in terms of identifying the critical areas in your business, okay, you already know, as I said to you earlier, look at complaints, Look at where issues have arisen in the business. Look at where your staff are constantly coming to you. I know in the paint and hardware retail business, one of the key frustrations of those businesses is, for some reason, any customer that walks into a paint and hardware store feels that they deserve a discount. So they'll walk in there, they'll have the salesman put their whole order together in terms of the paint and all the accessories and the paint brushes that they need, and it's now time to go to the till and paint and pay for their goods, and the customer will say, so what sort of a discount are you giving me? Now, nowhere have I ever come across a salesman who's now been empowered to say, well, I can give you 2% or 5% depending on the value of the purchase. And typically what happens, they go running to the business owner saying, this customer wants a discount. The owner will say, well, how much are they spending? And the customer will say, oh, they're spending 5,000 Rand. The owner will hum and haw a little bit and maybe say, okay, give them 1% or 2% or whatever the case may be. Why not empower? If you're going to do that across the board anyway, why not empower your staff, your sales staff, to just say, okay, for purchases between this amount and this amount, we can, if the customer asks for a discount, we can give it. For purchases above that, we'll give, and draw up a framework for it, but empower them to actually give that to the customer up front without them having to run to the owner all the time. It just makes them seem so much more sort of in touch with the business, and your customers will also be impressed by the fact that these sales guys know exactly what they're doing and what they're allowed to commit to. The other thing to do is to identify where, instead of discounts, can you offer a value add? Like again, if I give the paint and hardware retail example, instead of giving a discount, I know a paint retailer who has a supply of what's called a paint pourer, and you secure this paint pourer to the end of the paint tin, and when you're pouring the paint into a paint tray, it doesn't spill the paint everywhere. It's kind of just makes it much cleaner and nicer to work with. Now, I think that product sells for about 25 Rand. Rather give that away as a value add, and the customer still feels they're getting something for nothing, then give away 1 or 2% of your transaction as a discount. Makes so much more sense. Okay. Also, as part of the starting point, when you're giving your customers, your staff, the instruction to start listing the tasks that they perform on a daily basis, and kind of starting to make notes of the procedures that they follow to do the job, to carry out the tasks every day. Review what they've done, review how they do things, and actually ask them questions, because like I said to you, there's often a disconnect between what you think your staff are doing or should be doing and what they're actually doing. And now they're going to document this stuff, and you look at this and go, but I didn't tell you to do it this way. Okay. Find out what they're doing and why they're doing it. They might have actually come up with a way of doing it better, or to make their lives easier. Is it right? Is it efficient? So really, really review the way that you currently do things. And if you have some policies in place, review those current policies, okay, very importantly. And then identify what you need to do, what do you need to implement to actually improve on all those policies and procedures, okay? And the great thing about systematizing your business, the benefits of having these business systems in place. First and foremost, you are going to surpass your customer expectations. You will exceed what your customers expect from you. I saw this little cartoon where a customer clearly had an issue, a problem, and he had to phone into a call center for whatever reason. And he almost, you could see in the cartoon, from one little cartoon window to the next, frame to the next, he had to almost build up his patience and his tolerance and everything else before he even dialed the call center number, because he just already had this preconceived idea that he was going to have this frustrating experience dealing with a call center, and they probably weren't going to be able to resolve these issues anyway. So the minute you put these systems in place, like our friend Diane at FedEx, who really took the Purple Promise seriously and committed to it, you can suddenly now start empowering your staff, and they provide service that exceeds your customer expectations. And from a business point of view, the minute things are documented, and I spoke about, an employee leaves, maybe they abscond and they don't come back, or someone gets quite ill or is involved in an accident, God forbid, and suddenly you have tasks in the business that need to be performed, but this person's no longer there to do them, or they're out of action for a while. You can hand that work over to someone else in the business because you have resources for them to pick up and run with it. Or if you need to employ someone, you can bring someone into the business and you can get them productive as far quicker than if you had to now sit there and actually train that person and spend time with them to ensure that they understood what was required of them. So your efficiency, and remember, put a price to your time as the business owner. If you think about how much time you would have to spend training this new employee, put a value to that. Okay. Whereas if we had these things documented and we could just hand over policies and procedures and the resources to a new employee or a replacement employee, suddenly now that person's available, they're doing the work, and you as the business owner are overseeing it, but you're certainly not spending as much time trying to ensure that this person is trained and can actually do the job. Okay. So effectively, it's again, we're going back to doing things, having a business system that allows us to say, this is our way, this is the way we do things here in our businesses. And we're actually moving as a business owner. I'm moving away from that self-employed. I'm moving into the space of being more of the business owner, maybe more of an entrepreneur, as opposed to the technician. It allows me to now start to take the step out of my business. It allows me to start saying I must look at my business from above and start working on my business as opposed to in my business. And it actually gives my business structure. My business is able to run without me being there 24/7, 365. I can go on holiday. I can go and do other stuff. I have a neighbor who is in the building and construction industry. And we always joke in terms of how many holidays he takes a year and the fact that he can afford to go and play golf every Wednesday afternoon. But he's got his business set up right, where he's empowered his people. He's got well-trained people on his building sites, and he's able to actually take some time out of the business and go and do what's important to him. And if that is going on holiday, or if that is going onto the golf course, well done to him. And he's clearly done something right and kind of got it right. So very importantly, I can't stress strongly enough, as I said right in the beginning of the presentation, I can't stress strongly enough the importance of systematizing your business and documenting those systems, those procedures, those controls, and ensuring that you get the business to the point where this business can operate without you. Okay, you can remove yourself from the business. And a key factor is, if I ever decide to sell my business, because I've taken myself out of the business, I actually have a nice saleable asset, because someone else can come along and actually say, well, here's a business. It's got fabulous systems and procedures in place. I can literally take over. I can make sure that the staff and the management, we kind of do an induction and everybody gets to meet each other and happy with each other, but it should be business as usual. The business still goes on. Okay, so just to touch base on the Nedbank Ultimate Business Companion is that this book contains all the forms, templates, checklists, and other documents you need to help you implement systems in the business. And specifically chapter 4.9 of the book has a lot of information and resources around starting to document policies, procedures, and it'll help you a lot with systematizing the business. And the book also comes with an interactive CD-ROM. So when you see the examples of all the forms and the templates and the checklists, etc., in the book, you don't actually have to retype everything up. If you're wanting to use specific information, you can take the information off the CD-ROM, and it's very interactive, where you can work through it and manipulate or change the information to sort your business, to meet the needs of your business. And just an important point in that regard, that every single form and template and checklist was written to try and appeal to a broad spectrum of businesses across different industries and sectors. So you very definitely, if you make use of the resources in the book, you very definitely need to tailor them to your business and make them work for your business. And the book will be available very soon. We found out from the publishers that it will be here by the end of the month. So even from the point of view of the lucky winners of the 5 books from today's webinar on the giveaway, SimplyBiz will be in touch with you in due course to arrange for delivery of those books. But in the meantime, if you go onto the SimplyBiz site and go to the community section, I've got a slide here that you can have a look at. You go to the community section, and from there into the templates, the resources and templates, you'll actually find we've given you 8 forms for free. There's a kind of nice cross-section of forms, from business startup to some of the HR type stuff, like a contract of employment example. There are some nice checklists there. So go and have a look at those, and already there you can start using those to implement in your business. And then once we have the stock available of the book, they'll also be available for sale for you to purchase on the SimplyBiz website. Keep an eye on the marketplace and the website for information on that. And then, as a reminder, just before I shut off and wrap up, unless there are any further questions, is that the webinar will also be available on the SimplyBiz website, that if you want to go back and check anything or check the slides at any later stage, they're available for you to do. So I see there aren't any further questions coming through. I want to thank you for your time and just hopefully leave you with a few critical takeaways from this presentation. Key, if you want to grow a long-term sustainable business that gives you more enjoyment, gives you more freedom, gives you more money, all of those things, you have to put systems in place. It's not a luxury, it's kind of a necessity, okay? And by identifying the critical areas in your business, by prioritizing those critical areas, you can very definitely systematize, okay, your business. And you can start doing it today, okay? Not tomorrow, today. It allows you, systematize business, to empower your employees and to build a business that can operate without. I've said that numerous times during the presentation. And it will allow you to commit to becoming an entrepreneur instead of a technician. Hey, I think it's a space we'd all like to play in, being visionary and being the planner for the future, as opposed to being involved in the day-to-day nitty-gritties and the grind that our businesses can become. So the Nedbank Ultimate Business Companion, it's your one-stop resource to get you going. So, good luck to those who might have won a copy. But if you're wanting to purchase one, you are able to go on to SimplyBiz website, and that will be available for you in due course. Okay, so thank you very much for attending, for being part of the presentation this morning. Thank you for your questions and for the input. It's been great to talk to you. I see Philippos, Carmen, Shiksha, thank you everybody for participating. And I know I will be back. I'm going to come back in a few weeks' time to discuss some of the actual forms that are available in the book. So I hope you join me then. And until then, have a good day, have a good weekend. Thank you very much. Cheers.